In the heart of a roaring Miami stadium, one glance stopped Ronaldo cold, a face from his past that held the key to his dreams. The sun hung low over Miami, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as the charity soccer match kicked off at the vibrant community stadium. The air buzzed with laughter, cheers, and the rhythmic thump of balls against cleats. It was one of those feel-good events where retired players swapped their competitive edge for camaraderie, raising funds for local kids' sports programs. The stands were packed, not like a World Cup final, but alive with families, fans, and nostalgia. Ronaldo strode onto the field, his presence magnetic, his grin as wide as ever. He high-fived kids, tossed a ball to a screaming teen, and waved to the crowd, his energy infectious, like the boy from a small Florida town who'd once dreamed big on cracked asphalt. His teammates, a mix of old pros and local legends, bantered as they warmed up, their laughter echoing across the green. Coach Mike, a grizzled mentor with a salt and pepper beard, clapped Ronaldo on the back, reminiscing about their days training under the same scorching sun. Nearby, event organizer Sarah darted around, her clipboard a blur, ensuring every detail of the event sparkled. The crowd roared as Ronaldo juggled the ball with effortless flair, his feet dancing, each touch a reminder of why he'd become a global icon. Kids in the stands mimicked his moves, their eyes wide with hero worship. Among them sat Lily, a shy 10-year-old clutching a worn soccer ball, her mother Anna whispering encouragement to approach her idol later. But beneath the festive surface, something stirred in the air, a quiet promise of something profound, something that would cut through the noise and linger long after the final whistle. Before we dive in, drop a 1 in the comments if you love heartfelt stories, hit that like button if you don't, and stick around. There's a surprise twist at the end. Ronaldo spun the ball on his finger, a playful nod to his streetball roots. When his eyes drifted to the stands, his heart skipped. There, in the front row, sat a woman whose face time hadn't erased. Ms. Clara. Her hair was silver now, pulled back in a neat bun, her face etched with lines that spoke of years spent giving. But those eyes, kind, steady, like a lighthouse in a storm, were unmistakable. He froze, the ball slipping from his foot, rolling forgotten on the grass. The world blurred. The cheers faded. It was her. The teacher from his elementary school in that dusty Florida town, where hunger had been his constant shadow. Flashbacks hit hard. A skinny kid in a faded t-shirt, sneakers held together by tape, slipping into class with an empty stomach. Miss Clara had seen him, really seen him, when others looked away. She'd slip him a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly wrapped in wax paper. Behind the school's storage shed, her voice soft but firm. Eat quick, now, don't let anyone see. She never asked questions, never made him feel small. It was their secret, a quiet pact of kindness that kept him going when shame and hunger gnawed at his pride. His chest tightened. The memories flooded back, sharp and vivid. Mornings when he'd trudge to school, his backpack light but his heart heavy. No breakfast, no lunch money, just the ache in his gut that drowned out lessons. Miss Clara always knew. She'd call him over, pretending he'd forgotten a worksheet or needed to help stack books. Then, in the dim corner of her classroom, she'd press a sandwich into his hands, her smile warm like summer rain. "You're going to be something special, Cristiano," she'd say, her voice a lifeline. "Keep kicking that ball." He'd nod, too shy to speak, the bread soft and sweet in his mouth, filling more than his stomach. It filled his hope. Back then, soccer was his escape, a beat-up ball his only treasure. He'd play until dark, dodging potholes in the street, dreaming of stadiums like this one. Ms. Clara's belief in him was a spark, a whisper that he could be more than his circumstances. She wasn't just a teacher, she was a shield, guarding his dreams when they were fragile. Now, standing on the field, Ronaldo felt his throat close. The ball at his feet was still, his teammates' shouts distant. Coach Mike noticed, nudging him. "You good, man?" Ronaldo nodded, but his eyes stayed locked on Clara. She sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, watching the field with a faint smile, unaware of the storm she'd stirred in him. She looked smaller now, her shoulders slightly hunched, but her presence loomed large, pulling him back to that boy who'd once felt invisible. He saw her laugh softly at something a fellow retiree said, her face lighting up, and it hit him. She'd never sought thanks, never bragged about her kindness. It was just who she was. His hands trembled. He wanted to run to her, to say everything he'd carried for years, but the crowd, the cameras, the game, they pressed in, demanding his attention. Sarah, the organizer, called out, waving him toward a group of kids for photos. He forced a smile, his mind elsewhere. Lily, clutching her ball, stared from the stands, her eyes bright with hope of meeting him. But Ronaldo's heart was with Clara, with the debt he owed her, a debt no trophy could repay. The game kicked off, the crowd's cheers swelling. Ronaldo moved on instinct, his passes sharp, his footwork a blur. But his eyes kept drifting to the stands. Clara clapped politely, her expression serene, like she was just another spectator. Did she even know he was here? Did she remember him? The thought twisted in his gut. He'd left that town behind, chasing fame across continents, but her face had stayed with him, a quiet anchor in his whirlwind life. He remembered the day he'd scored his first goal in a local league, how he'd run home to tell her, only to find she'd been transferred to another school. He'd never said goodbye, never said thank you. The guilt of that silence weighed on him now, heavier than ever. Coach Mike jogged past, shouting, "Stay focused, Ronaldo!" But focus was impossible. Every kick, every sprint, felt like a countdown to the moment he could reach her. The halftime whistle loomed, a chance to break free, to cross the distance between the star he'd become and the boy she'd saved. As the first half wound down, Ronaldo's mind raced. He saw Clara stand, stretching her legs, chatting with another retired teacher. Her movements were slow, deliberate, like someone who'd spent a lifetime giving and never asking for anything back. He thought of the countless kids she must have helped, the ones who never made it to stadiums, the ones whose names never hit headlines. Yet here she was, unassuming, her legacy woven into lives like his. He glanced at Lily in the stands, her ball clutched tight, her mother whispering to her. That could have been him, he thought. A kid with a dream, needing someone to believe. Clara had been that someone. The whistle blew, signaling halftime. The crowd roared, but Ronaldo barely heard it. His teammates jogged off, laughing, but he stood rooted, his eyes on Clara. Sarah approached, clipboard in hand, ready to usher him to a sponsor meet and greet. "Not now," he said, his voice low, firm. She blinked, surprised, but nodded. Coach Mike raised an eyebrow but said nothing, sensing something bigger at play. Ronaldo took a step toward the stands, his heart pounding like it did before a penalty kick. The distance to Clara felt like miles, each step heavy with memory, with gratitude, with the weight of a boy who'd never forgotten the woman who fed his dreams. He moved through the crowd, ignoring the fans calling his name, the cameras flashing. Lily's eyes widened as he passed, her ball forgotten in her lap. Anna, her mother, nudged her, whispering, "That's him." But Ronaldo's focus was singular. Clara was still standing, her back to him, unaware of the storm approaching. His breath caught. What would he say? How do you thank someone who gave you dignity when you had none? His mind flashed to the shed behind the school, the crinkle of wax paper, the warmth of her hand on his shoulder. He was close now, close enough to see the faint tremor in her hands as she adjusted her scarf. The crowd parted, sensing something sacred. Coach Mike watched from the sidelines, his gruff face softening. Sarah, clipboard forgotten, stood still, her eyes tracking Ronaldo's path. The stadium seemed to hold its breath, the festive noise fading into a hush. Ronaldo stopped a few feet away, his voice stuck in his throat. Clara turned, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment, time folded. She tilted her head, a spark of recognition flickering. "Cristiano?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, but it hit him like a thunderbolt. He nodded, his eyes burning, and in that moment, the boy from the small Florida town was back, standing before the woman who'd seen his light when the world saw only shadows. The halftime whistle still echoed faintly in the Miami stadium, its vibrant energy now softened into a quieter hum as players jogged off the field and fans stretched in the stands. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the grass, where Ronaldo stood, his heart hammering, his eyes locked on Miss Clara. Her whispered "Cristiano" hung in the air, fragile yet heavy, pulling him back to a childhood of hunger and hope. Her face, weathered but warm, held a flicker of surprise, her silver hair catching the fading light. She stood just beyond the sideline barrier, her hands clutching her scarf, unaware of the crowd's curious gazes. Ronaldo's throat tightened. The world, the cameras, the cheering kids, the teammates calling his name, faded into a blur. It was just him and her, the boy he'd been and the teacher who'd saved him. He took a shaky step forward, his cleats sinking into the grass, each movement deliberate, like he was crossing a bridge to the past. The air felt thick with memory, with words he'd never said, with gratitude that had burned in him for decades. Coach Mike watched from the sidelines, his arms crossed, his gruff face softening as he sensed the weight of the moment. Sarah, the event organizer, hovered nearby, her clipboard forgotten, her eyes wide with curiosity. In the stands, Lily, the young fan, clutched her soccer ball, her mother Anna whispering, "Something's happening." And it was. Something sacred, something unstoppable. Ronaldo reached the barrier, his hands gripping the cool metal, his voice barely a rasp. "Miss Clara, it's me." Her eyes widened, searching his face, tracing the lines of the man who'd once been her skinny, quiet student. A smile broke through, soft and trembling, like dawn after a long night. "My boy," she murmured, her voice cracking, and those two words shattered something in him. His eyes burned, tears threatening to spill. He wanted to say everything, how her sandwiches had kept him alive, how her belief had fueled his dreams. But the words tangled in his chest. Instead, he gestured to the security guard, a burly man who hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. Ronaldo vaulted the barrier, ignoring the gasps from the crowd, his focus singular. Clara stood still, her hands trembling, her scarf slipping to her shoulder. He closed the distance and, without thinking, pulled her into an embrace. It was fierce, desperate, like a son finding his mother after years lost. Her arms, frail but strong, wrapped around him, and he felt her shudder, her breath hitching against his shoulder. The stadium seemed to vanish, the noise dissolving into a hush, as if the world knew this moment was theirs alone. He pulled back, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes searching hers. "You remember me?" he asked, his voice raw. Clara laughed, a soft, watery sound, wiping her cheek with a trembling hand. "How could I forget you, Cristiano? That shy boy with the big dreams?" Her words were a balm, soothing wounds he hadn't realized still ached. He smiled, a boyish grin breaking through, but his eyes glistened. The crowd murmured, phones raised, capturing the scene. But Ronaldo didn't care. He glanced at the field, where his teammate Javier, a stocky midfielder with a quick laugh, watched with a nod of respect. Javier had heard Ronaldo's stories, late-night talks about the teacher who'd been his lifeline. Now, seeing her, Javier's eyes softened, and he gave a subtle thumbs up. Ronaldo turned back to Clara, his heart racing. "You don't know what you did for me," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Those sandwiches, those talks, you kept me going when I had nothing." Clara shook her head, her smile humble. "I just did what was right, son. You were hungry. I couldn't let you stay that way." Flashbacks crashed over him, vivid and relentless. The schoolyard in that small Florida town, dust clinging to his sneakers, the other kids laughing over lunchboxes he couldn't afford. He'd sit alone, pretending to read, his stomach growling loud enough to betray him. Clara would appear, her teacher's skirt swishing, her voice calling him to help with some made-up task. Behind the shed, she'd hand him a sandwich, her eyes kind but firm. "Eat, Cristiano, you need your strength." He'd devour it, crumbs falling, shame and gratitude warring in his chest. She never judged, never pitied. She'd talk about soccer, about his speed on the field, her words planting seeds of possibility. "You've got a gift," she'd say, her voice steady. "Don't let anyone take it from you." Those moments were his refuge, her kindness a shield against a world that felt too big, too cruel. He'd promised himself even then that he'd thank her one day, but life had swept him away. Scouts, contracts, stadiums. Yet her face had stayed with him, a quiet compass guiding him back. Now, standing before her, Ronaldo felt that promise burn anew. He glanced at the stands where a woman in her 40s approached Clara, her face a younger echo of the teacher's. "Mom?" she said, her voice tentative. Clara turned, smiling. "Emma, this is Cristiano, one of my old students." Emma's eyes widened, recognition dawning. "The Ronaldo?" she asked, her voice rising. Clara chuckled, patting her daughter's arm. "To me, he's just my boy." Emma stared, her expression a mix of awe and pride, and Ronaldo felt a pang. Clara had a family, a life he'd never known, yet she'd given so much to him. He wanted to give back, to make her see what she meant. He turned to Sarah, who lingered nearby, and beckoned her over. "Can we get a mic?" he asked, his voice steady now, resolute. Sarah nodded, scrambling to comply, her clipboard clattering to the ground. The crowd hushed, sensing a shift, their phones still raised. Lily leaned forward in her seat, her ball forgotten, her eyes bright with wonder. Anna squeezed her hand, whispering, "Watch, baby. This is special." The microphone crackled as Ronaldo took it, his hand steady despite the storm in his chest. He faced the stands, Clara beside him, her expression a mix of pride and unease. She wasn't used to the spotlight, her life spent in quiet classrooms, not stadiums. He squeezed her hand, grounding her, then spoke, his voice clear, carrying across the field. "This woman," he began, his eyes on Clara, "is why I'm here today." The crowd stilled, their cheers fading into attentive silence. "When I was a kid, I had nothing. No food, no money, just a ball and a dream. Ms. Clara saw me. She fed me when I was hungry, believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." His voice broke, and he paused, swallowing hard. Clara's eyes glistened, her hand trembling in his. "She gave me more than sandwiches," he continued, his voice stronger now. "She gave me hope. And I'm here to say thank you, because without her, I wouldn't be standing here." The crowd erupted, applause rolling like thunder, but Ronaldo's focus stayed on Clara, her face flushed, her eyes wet. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box, its surface worn from years of carrying. "I've kept this for you," he said, his voice soft, meant only for her. He opened it, revealing a silver pendant shaped like a soccer ball, simple but gleaming. "It's not much, but it's from the heart." Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, tears spilling freely now. Emma stepped closer, her own eyes misty, her arm around her mother. Ronaldo fastened the pendant around Clara's neck, his fingers gentle, his eyes never leaving hers. "You gave me my dreams," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is my way of saying they started with you." Clara touched the pendant, her fingers tracing its curve, her smile radiant through her tears. The crowd cheered again, louder now, some standing, others wiping their eyes. Javier clapped from the field, his grin wide, while Coach Mike nodded, his throat tight. Sarah, usually all business, brushed a tear from her cheek, her clipboard forgotten. Ronaldo handed the mic back, but the moment wasn't over. He led Clara to a bench near the sidelines, helping her sit, her legs unsteady from emotion. Emma followed, her hand on her mother's shoulder, her face glowing with pride. The crowd settled, sensing the intimacy of the moment, their phones lowering slightly. Ronaldo sat beside Clara, his posture relaxed, but his eyes intense, like he was memorizing her face. "I looked for you," he admitted, his voice low. "After I left town, I tried to find you, but you'd moved. I never forgot, though." Clara smiled, patting his hand, her touch as warm as he remembered. "I knew you'd go far, Cristiano. I saw it in you, even when you didn't." Her words hit him hard, a reminder of her unwavering faith. He thought of the nights he'd lain awake, hungry and scared, her voice echoing in his mind. "You're special." Those words had carried him through tryouts, through rejection, through the grind of making it big. Emma spoke up, her voice soft but curious. "Mom never told me about you, not like this." Clara chuckled, shaking her head. "It wasn't my story to tell, honey. I just did what any teacher would." Ronaldo shook his head, his eyes fierce. "No, Miss Clara. Not every teacher. You saw me when no one else did." He paused, his gaze distant, lost in memory. He saw the classroom, the chalk dust in the air, the way Clara's desk was always cluttered with books and student drawings. She'd stay late, helping kids like him, her patience endless. He remembered the day she'd given him a used soccer magazine, its pages worn but precious. "Read about the greats," she'd said. "You'll be in there one day." He'd kept that magazine, tattered now, in a box of keepsakes, a relic of her belief. Now, sitting beside her, he felt that belief wrap around him again, a warmth he'd carried across continents. The halftime clock ticked down, the game set to resume soon, but Ronaldo didn't move. Javier jogged over, clapping his shoulder. "Take your time, man," he said, his voice low, respectful. Ronaldo nodded, grateful, his eyes back on Clara. She looked at the pendant, her fingers still tracing it, her smile soft. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice thick. "Seeing you here, that's enough." Ronaldo shook his head, his voice firm. "It's not enough. You deserve more, and I'm going to make sure you get it." Clara's eyes widened, but before she could protest, Sarah approached, her expression gentle. "We need to start the second half," she said, almost apologetic. Ronaldo nodded, but his hand lingered on Clara's, reluctant to let go. The crowd stirred, sensing the moment's end, but their applause lingered, warm and heartfelt. Lily watched from the stands, her ball clutched tight, her eyes shining with a mix of awe and inspiration. Anna hugged her, whispering, "That's what kindness does, baby." Ronaldo stood, helping Clara to her feet, his arm steadying her. Emma smiled, her eyes misty, her pride in her mother palpable. He looked at Clara, his voice low, urgent. "This isn't over, Miss Clara. I'm not letting you slip away again." She laughed, a soft, joyful sound patting his cheek like she had when he was 10. "You always were stubborn, Cristiano." He grinned, the weight in his chest lighter now, but the promise burned bright. He walked her back to her seat, the crowd parting respectfully, their phones capturing every step. Coach Mike met his gaze, giving a slow nod, his eyes saying what words couldn't. Javier waited on the field, tossing a ball, his grin encouraging. Ronaldo glanced back at Clara, now seated, her pendant gleaming, her smile a beacon. The game would go on, but this moment, her hand in his, her voice in his heart, would stay with him forever, a debt he'd spend his life repaying. The second half of the charity match roared back to life in the Miami stadium, the crowd's cheers swelling as the ball zipped across the grass. Ronaldo played with his usual flair, his feet a blur, but his heart was elsewhere, tethered to Miss Clara sitting in the stands. Her silver hair caught the stadium lights, her pendant glinting as she clapped softly, her smile steady and proud. The game felt secondary now, a backdrop to the reunion that had shifted something deep inside him. As he weaved through defenders, his mind replayed their embrace, her trembling hands, the weight of her kindness. Coach Mike shouted from the sidelines, his gruff voice cutting through the noise, urging focus, but Ronaldo's eyes flicked to Clara, grounding him. In the stands, Lily, the young fan, clutched her soccer ball, her eyes wide, whispering to her mother, Anna, about the moment she'd witnessed. Event organizer Sarah, now back to her clipboard, stole glances at Clara, her professional demeanor softened by the scene she'd seen unfold. The clock ticked down, the score irrelevant. For Ronaldo, the real victory was in the front row where Clara sat, her presence a reminder of where he'd come from and who he owed. As the final whistle blew, the crowd erupted, their applause a warm wave washing over the field. Players high-fived, sweat-soaked and laughing, but Ronaldo's steps were purposeful, drawn back to the sidelines. The stands buzzed with chatter, fans reliving the game, but a quiet reverence lingered around Clara. She stood slowly, Emma, her daughter, steadying her arm, her face glowing with pride. Ronaldo approached, his breath still heavy from the match, his jersey damp. "Miss Clara," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I'm not done yet." Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and amusement, her hand touching the pendant he'd given her. "You've done too much already, Cristiano," she said, her voice gentle, like a teacher soothing a stubborn student. He shook his head, a determined glint in his eyes. "Not enough, not even close." Emma smiled, sensing something big, her arm still looped through her mother's. The crowd thinned, but a few lingered, sensing the moment wasn't over. Lily hovered nearby, her ball clutched tight, Anna encouraging her to stay close. A local reporter, Tom, a wiry man with a notepad, edged closer, his curiosity piqued by the emotional halftime scene. Ronaldo gestured to Sarah, who hurried over, her clipboard now a prop rather than a shield. "Can you get a car ready?" he asked, his voice low, conspiratorial. Sarah nodded, her eyes bright with understanding, and darted off to make arrangements. Clara tilted her head, her brow furrowing. "What are you up to, Cristiano?" she asked, her tone playful but wary. He grinned, that boyish smile breaking through, the one she'd known decades ago. "You'll see," he said, offering his arm. She took it, her steps slow but steady, Emma trailing behind, her smile mirroring her mother's. The stadium lights dimmed, casting long shadows, but the warmth between them glowed brighter. Coach Mike watched from a distance, his arms crossed, a rare softness in his grizzled face. Javier, Ronaldo's teammate, jogged over, tossing a towel over his shoulder. "You're making us all look bad, man," he teased, but his eyes were warm, his nod one of respect. Ronaldo chuckled, but his focus stayed on Clara, guiding her toward the stadium exit where a sleek black SUV waited, its driver standing ready. The crowd parted, their murmurs soft, respectful. Phones still flashed, capturing the scene, but it felt less intrusive now, more like a shared celebration. Lily tugged at Anna's sleeve, whispering, "Can we follow them?" Anna hesitated, then nodded, sensing the moment's importance for her daughter. Tom, the reporter, scribbled furiously, his pen racing to keep up with the story unfolding. Ronaldo helped Clara into the SUV, her hand small in his, her pendant catching the light. Emma slid in beside her, her eyes misty but bright. Ronaldo climbed in, sitting across from them, his posture relaxed but his gaze intense. The driver pulled away, the stadium fading behind them, its cheers a distant echo. Clara looked out the window, her expression calm but curious, her fingers tracing the pendant. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice soft, almost lost in the hum of the engine. Ronaldo leaned forward, his hands clasped, his voice steady. "Somewhere you deserve," he said, his eyes locking with hers. Emma squeezed her mother's hand, her smile widening, sensing the surprise but not pressing for details. The SUV glided through Miami streets, neon lights flickering past, the city alive with evening energy. Inside, the air was quiet, intimate, like a family catching up after years apart. Ronaldo's mind drifted to the past, to the small Florida town where Clara's classroom had been his sanctuary. He saw the chalkboard, her neat handwriting, the way she'd pause to check on him, her eyes catching the hunger he tried to hide. She'd slip him a granola bar, a piece of fruit, always with a smile that said, "You're enough." He remembered the day she'd brought him a pair of second-hand cleats, their laces frayed but sturdy, left anonymously on his desk. "Found these," she'd said, winking, knowing he'd never ask for help. Those cleats had carried him through his first local matches, each goal a tribute to her faith. Now, sitting across from her, he felt that debt anew, a fire to give back what she'd given him. The car slowed, pulling into a quiet neighborhood, its streets lined with modest bungalows, their lawns tidy, their lights warm. Clara peered out, her brow furrowing. "Cristiano, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling now, sensing something monumental. He smiled, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Your new home," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. Clara's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide, tears spilling instantly. Emma gasped, her hand tightening on her mother's, her own eyes glistening. The SUV stopped in front of a cozy house, its white walls glowing under the streetlights, its front porch adorned with potted flowers. Ronaldo stepped out, offering his hand to Clara, who moved slowly, her legs unsteady, her face a mix of disbelief and wonder. Emma followed, her arm around her mother, her smile radiant. The driver opened the gate, revealing a small garden, its path lined with stones, leading to a door painted a soft blue. Ronaldo led them inside, the house warm and inviting, its furniture simple but elegant. A plush sofa, a wooden dining table, a kitchen gleaming with new appliances. Clara's breath caught, her hand clutching the pendant, her eyes scanning the space. "This is yours," Ronaldo said, his voice steady but soft. "In your name, fully paid, with everything you need. Caretakers, bills covered, all of it." Clara shook her head, tears streaming now, her voice failing. "Cristiano, I can't," she whispered, but he gently cut her off, his hand on her shoulder. "You can, Miss Clara. You gave me a future. This is me giving you a little peace." Emma hugged her mother, her own tears falling, her voice choked. "Mom, you deserve this." Clara looked at her daughter, then at Ronaldo, her eyes shining with a gratitude too deep for words. She stepped forward, her arms wrapping around him, her embrace fierce despite her frail frame. He held her tight, his own eyes wet, the boy inside him finally home. They walked through the house, Clara touching the countertops, the curtains, her fingers trembling with awe. Emma laughed through her tears, pointing out a small bookshelf filled with teaching manuals and novels, a nod to Clara's love of learning. Ronaldo watched, his heart full, the weight of years lifting. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, a stark contrast to the stadium's roar, but the moment felt louder, more profound. Lily and Anna had followed in their own car, parking discreetly across the street. Lily clutched her ball, her eyes wide as she watched through the window, whispering, "She's so happy." Anna nodded, her hand on her daughter's shoulder, her own eyes misty. Tom, the reporter, had trailed them too, his notepad now a laptop, his fingers typing furiously to capture the story. He'd seen the halftime speech, the pendant, and now this. A house, a gesture that spoke louder than any goal Ronaldo had ever scored. Back inside, Ronaldo pulled a small box from his pocket, its edges worn from carrying. "One more thing," he said, his voice soft, handing it to Clara. She opened it, revealing a miniature soccer ball, gold-plated, no bigger than a walnut. "A symbol," he said, his eyes locking with hers, "of what you did for me. You kicked off my dreams." Clara's fingers trembled as she held it, her smile radiant through her tears. "You're too much, Cristiano," she said, her voice breaking, but her eyes said she understood. Emma wiped her cheeks, her pride in her mother overflowing. Ronaldo glanced at the door, where Lily peeked in, her ball under her arm, Anna behind her. He waved them inside, his smile warm. "Come meet someone special," he said, introducing Lily to Clara. The girl's eyes widened, shy but awestruck as Clara knelt slightly, her teacher's instinct kicking in. "You play soccer?" Clara asked, her voice gentle. Lily nodded, clutching her ball tighter. "I want to be like him," she said, glancing at Ronaldo. Clara smiled, patting her hand. "Keep dreaming big, sweetheart. You'll get there." Ronaldo saw his chance. He grabbed a marker from the kitchen counter, kneeling beside Lily. "Let's make this special," he said, signing her soccer ball with a flourish. Then he handed the marker to Clara, his eyes twinkling. "Your turn, Miss Clara." She laughed, a soft, surprised sound, shaking her head. "Me? I'm no star." Ronaldo's gaze was firm, unwavering. "You're my star," he said, his voice low, earnest. Clara's hand shook as she signed her name beside his, the ink smudging slightly from her trembling fingers. Lily stared at the ball, her eyes wide, sensing the weight of the moment. Anna watched, her hand over her mouth, tears brimming. Tom, standing discreetly at the door, typed faster, his story now a testament to kindness, to legacy. The room felt alive, the air thick with connection, with the kind of love that outlasts fame. As the evening deepened, Ronaldo and Clara sat on the porch, the others inside, giving them space. The night was cool, the stars peeking through Miami's glow. Clara held the tiny soccer ball, her pendant glinting, her eyes distant but content. "I never expected this," she said, her voice soft, almost lost in the night. "I just wanted you to have a chance." Ronaldo leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his voice steady. "You gave me more than that, Miss Clara. You gave me hope when I had none." He paused, his eyes tracing the stars. "I've played in front of millions, won trophies, but this, giving you this house, this moment, it's bigger." Clara smiled, her hand finding his, her touch as warm as it had been decades ago. "You were always special, Cristiano. I just helped you see it." He laughed, a soft, emotional sound, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "You did more than that. You saved me." The story spread like wildfire. By morning, clips of Ronaldo's halftime speech, the pendant, the house, were everywhere. Social media, news sites, morning shows. Tom's article hit the local paper's front page, its headline simple: "Ronaldo honors the teacher who fed his dreams." Comments flooded in, people sharing stories of their own unsung heroes, teachers who'd changed their lives. Lily showed her signed ball at school, her voice proud as she told the story. Anna shared it online, her post going viral, a beacon of hope in a noisy world. Ronaldo, back in his hotel, scrolled through the messages, his eyes still raw from the night before. He paused on one comment. "Never forget who lifted you up," he murmured to himself. "I never will, Miss Clara. Never." The house stood quiet, its lights warm, Clara settling in with Emma's help, the tiny soccer ball on her nightstand, a reminder of a boy who'd never forgotten her. The world moved on, but in that small Miami bungalow, a bond endured, a testament to the power of a sandwich, a word, a heart that saw potential where others saw nothing. The story of Ronaldo's reunion with Miss Clara during the charity soccer match in Miami is a powerful testament to the enduring impact of kindness, gratitude, and human connection. It resonates deeply, stirring emotions that remind us of the unsung heroes in our own lives and the profound influence small acts can have. Watching Ronaldo, a global icon, pause his celebrated life to honor a humble teacher who fed him during his childhood poverty evokes a mix of awe, warmth, and introspection. The raw emotion in their embrace, the sincerity in his public gratitude, and the tangible gift of a new home for Clara reveal a universal truth. The smallest gestures given without expectation can shape destinies. This narrative moves beyond the glitz of fame, grounding us in the quiet, often invisible acts that build lives. It's a story that lingers, urging us to reflect on our own journeys, the people who lifted us, and how we can pay that kindness forward. The emotional weight of Ronaldo's tears as he recognized Clara in the stands hit hard. It wasn't just about seeing a familiar face. It was about confronting a past marked by hunger, shame, and hope. His vulnerability, standing before thousands, yet focused solely on her, shows the power of authenticity. In a world obsessed with polished images, Ronaldo's willingness to cry, to share his struggles, and to elevate Clara's quiet heroism feels revolutionary. It reminds us that true strength lies in acknowledging our roots and the hands that steadied us. Clara's humility, her insistence that she just did what was right, amplifies this. She didn't seek recognition, yet her impact rippled through Ronaldo's life, touching millions through his story. This dynamic challenges us to value the everyday heroes, teachers, neighbors, strangers, who act with compassion, often without fanfare. It's a call to notice them, to thank them, and to emulate their selflessness. The story also underscores the transformative power of gratitude. Ronaldo's journey from a hungry boy to a soccer legend could have distanced him from his past, yet he carried Clara's kindness like a torch. His search for her, the pendant, the house, and the public tribute weren't just gestures, they were a fulfillment of a promise to never forget. This deliberate gratitude teaches us that success isn't just about personal achievement, it's about honoring those who paved the way. In our own lives, we can apply this by pausing to thank the people who believed in us. A coach who stayed late, a friend who listened, a parent who sacrificed. Writing a note, making a call, or simply saying thank you can bridge years, healing old wounds and deepening bonds. Ronaldo's example shows that gratitude isn't passive, it's an active choice that enriches both giver and receiver. Another lesson lies in the ripple effect of kindness. Clara's sandwiches weren't just food, they were hope, dignity, and belief in a boy's potential. Those moments fueled Ronaldo's dreams, leading to a career that inspired millions. Similarly, our actions, however small, can spark chains of impact we may never see. A kind word to a struggling coworker, a meal shared with a neighbor, or a moment of patience with a child can plant seeds that grow far beyond our sight. This story encourages us to act with intention, knowing our choices matter. It also reminds us to be open to receiving kindness. Ronaldo accepted Clara's help despite his pride, allowing her to shape his life. In our own moments of need, letting others in can forge connections that endure. The public response to Ronaldo's gesture, viral videos, heartfelt comments, and shared stories highlights our collective hunger for hope and humanity. In a world often divided, this story united people across cultures, reminding us of shared values, compassion, gratitude, and community. It inspires us to build bridges in our own circles, whether through volunteering, mentoring, or simply listening. By amplifying unsung heroes, as Ronaldo did, we can shift narratives, celebrating those who give quietly. This applies to workplaces, schools, and neighborhoods, where recognizing others' contributions fosters unity and purpose. Applying these lessons means living with intention. Start small. Write a thank you note to someone who helped you years ago. Share a meal with someone in need. Mentor a young person, offering the belief Clara gave Ronaldo. These acts don't require wealth or fame, just a willing heart. They remind us that legacy isn't built on trophies, but on lives touched. Ronaldo's story also urges us to stay connected to our roots, no matter how far we go. Reflect on your past, the struggles, the helpers, and let those memories guide your actions. Finally, be a Clara. See the overlooked, act without expectation, and trust that your kindness matters. This story's emotional pull is universal because it's about us all. Our struggles, our helpers, our chance to give back. It's a mirror, asking who we've thanked, who we've helped, and who we can become. Let's carry its lessons into our lives, making gratitude and kindness our daily practice. The world needs more Claras and Ronaldos, and that starts with us. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button to spread its message. Share this video with friends to inspire them to honor their unsung heroes. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell for more stories that uplift and unite. Drop a comment below. Who's the Clara in your life? Share your story. We're reading everyone. Let's keep this wave of kindness going.